The Alpha Foxtrot 45 full-size government model. We took it to the range 3 different times. We've got 300 rounds through it, and we're going to show some of the range footage on it. And at the end of this video, please stick around because I have 3 questions that I need a little help with. Welcome to Riders Range. We have already done the unboxing of the Alpha Foxtrot 45. I'll post a link to that. And we did take it to the range 3 times and put 100 rounds through it each time. First time indoors, and then we put 100 rounds through it on the outdoor range, and finally another 100 on the indoor range, and shot it all the way out to 50 yards. And we need to talk about this gun. First of all, I want to get out of the way some things I like about it. First, I like the fact that it came with a Wilson magazine, even though it only came with one. At least it came with a Wilson magazine. That's I like that. I do like the fact it's got a very slight reverse crown on the barrel. Feels actually fairly sharp in there, which is again a touch you don't normally see on a lot of I won't say budget 1911s. This one retails for well over $1,000. The front and rear slide serrations are certainly usable. Has machine texturing on the front, the frame, as well as the mainspring housing. It's got a good usable magazine release. While the slide is very well fitted, but even more importantly, the barrel has a good lockup on it, so it does have potential for accuracy. This is not a feature that I particularly care for, but a lot of others may, and that's the ambidextrous safety. Good beaver tail on it, skeletonized hammer and trigger, and Novak's rear sight, and I did verify that is in fact a Novak's or Novak sight. And the gun, after the first shot, did shoot very, very well, relatively speaking. However, a couple issues I got to talk about. First thing, we'll roll some quick footage here. The very first shot out of the box. Now let me preface that by saying that when I got this gun, with most other guns, I take it apart, clean it, lube it, put it back together, and I ran the slide on this 30 times, which is my normal practice, and also worked the trigger 100 times, which is also my normal practice on a new gun. And you can see in the original unboxing on this, the trigger on this was 7 pounds 3.8 ounces, so basically 7 1/3 pound trigger pull on a 1911. Totally unacceptable. We're going to get back to the trigger in a couple of minutes, but after taking it apart, running the slide, and again, I make it a habit of running the slide 30 times. I'll do it 10, wipe the back, do it 10, wipe the back, do it 10, wipe the back to get the oil off, because I do run 1911s wet, particularly out of the box. And still work the trigger, like I say, numerous times there. And it was all working fine. It's obviously the slide runs nice, and by the way, it feels really, really well fitted. So I liked all of that. Very first shot, however, you'll see that the slide locked back, and that wasn't the slide stop lever that locked that slide back. Pop the magazine out, pull the slide stop lever down, and that slide ran completely free. Like there was no spring in it at all. And again, I ran it manually a number of times, well, 30 times before I even took it to the range. So it eventually, by working the slides more on the range, it eventually got back to having spring tension again. But then I took it apart, and you'll see that there is now a pronounced kink in the recoil spring on this. So somehow that spring jammed up, possibly on the short GI guide rod. I'm not sure exactly how it happened. I mentioned that to the gunsmith at Ann Arbor, and he'd never heard of it before. And out of more than 50 1911s that I've tested so far, this is the first time that's ever happened. And again, I can't blame it on putting it together incorrectly, because I worked the slide numerous times by hand, even with full force, and it worked fine. All right, so problem number 1 was the slide locked back. Somehow the spring kinked. It only happened one time. The other 299 shots worked just fine with it. But the second problem is this Novak's rear sight turned out to be a self-adjusting rear sight. And again, you can see that after the first magazine or so, that sight was moving all over. In addition to the fact that it's not a bad sight picture, I'm not going to complain about that. Although I don't like the white dot front sight for precision, but it's okay for combat. But this gun was shooting low. For my first shots, even 15 yards, it was shooting low. And when I patterned this thing on at 23 yards on the Ann Arbor tack bay, which is, I think it goes on at 24. I normally set it at 23. And I was still shooting about 4 inches low. So when we took it out to 50 yards, I even missed the big steel gong to start with first shot. I finally got the second shot in. Shooting at the 16-inch plate, I was aiming at the top of the plate to hit it. Same thing with the 12. Had to struggle a little bit to get the 10 and the 8, and had to really struggle, but eventually got the 6-inch plate at 50 yards. But it took a lot of work to get it there. So this gun is shooting decidedly low. And in fact, I need to get a new rear sight, possibly, if I'm going to keep this thing. But I'll bring up the questions at the end. And I need to get one that's going to be around 35 hundredths of an inch higher in order to be able to bring that, that shot pattern up to where it should be at the distance. So a little bit of trouble with the recoil guide rod one time, or at least the spring, and the self-adjusting rear sight. Now every magazine that I fire, I'm cranking down the set screw in this, and when the set screw is not cranked down, that tip the gun sideways and that sight will fall right out of the dovetail. It should be at least tight enough so that it takes pressure to move it, but that's not the case in this. So did they cut the sight too small or the dovetail too big? I don't know. Which brings us down to the third issue, and that is the trigger. And again, I've already shown clear on this. Now, when I measured the trigger the first time, I was questioned by a viewer about the angle of pull. Now, again, some of that's camera angle, but again, it was a couple degrees off of straight. So that will change the trigger pull by an ounce or so. So we're going to pull it completely straight this time, and we'll do the first one slow, and then we'll speed up the next 3, and then do the final one slow again, and show you the average. Now, I am going to pull this thing straight. In fact, let's turn this just a little bit. The sensor in this is in the tip, not down here, so it doesn't matter what angle I've got that on. All right, so we showed the calibration on this gauge in the original one. All right, we're going to do a nice straight pull. We are zeroed, and that wasn't too bad at 6 pounds 4.8 ounces. All right, we're going to enter that, and we're going to do 3 more as we speed it up, and then we'll slow one down at the end again and see what our average is. All right, after 4 pulls, we're at 5 pounds 5.7 ounces, and the 5th pull to get my 5-pull average comes out to 6 pounds 7 ounces on that pull. Gives me a 5 pound 9.2 ounce average over 5 pulls, so more than 5.5 pounds on a 1911 trigger. Woefully unacceptable on any 1911, particularly at this price point. All right, but it did improve a little bit. So we've actually shaved a couple ounces off of that, and in 300 rounds. So is it going to get better? I don't know. We'll see. So the question now comes up to, what am I going to do with the gun? And this is where I need your help. 3 questions. Number 1, should I just send it back to the factory, have them take care of that problem with the rear sight, and maybe lighten up that trigger pull a little bit? Or should I keep it and put a new rear sight on it? And that means that I need to get one that's, again, about 35 hundredths of an inch taller to bring my zero up where it belongs. And if I keep it, should I even drop maybe a Nighthawk drop-in trigger on it just to see how that works? Of course, at $300 for a Nighthawk trigger, and add that to the $1,100 I spent on the gun, that's pushing the price point up pretty high. And the final question is, should I just sell it? And again, I kind of hate to pass that gun on to somebody else that is just not working the way I think it ought to work. So I don't know. Your thoughts on send it back, keep it, and change the sight and the trigger, or sell it? What do you think? All right, that is the range report on the Alpha Foxtrot AF1911 45 caliber full size, forged steel, forged frame, nicely assembled, nicely put together gun. Just not quite sure of its function at the price point. Oh, by the way, it is accurate when I shoot it, other than the fact it's just not hitting where I want it. So, not so quick look at the Alpha Foxtrot. Thanks for stopping into Riders Range.
I'm almost going to blame part of it on me. I'm not working this gun today like I should. See if I can get it back the other way, though. This gun is shooting low.